Nice string introduction, orchestral introduction. Time come for the singer to come. He's in the wrong key. He started the song in the wrong key.
Oh, okay.
Man, I'm in the audience and my eyes are open wide. Because I'm like, oh my God, he just, after like a good 30-second introduction, he come in on the wrong key, totally out of key. And within like 3 seconds, the entire orchestra and band just shift in the key with him. They just transposed. What? Yeah.
But he was transposing. And so we went to another song and he forgot to untranspose. So the song we were doing was supposed to be in D flat. He had transposed up one. So he was playing in D flat, but we were in D, the rest of the band. And so and this is like the day, here's what happened. The song starts with him. He realizes halfway through the introduction that he's in the wrong key. So he looks at us and like, hey, can y'all handle this? Can y'all handle it? And we all like, it's no problem, man. Keep this going. So we all played the song in D, and it was fine.
Apparently, there's some big name
folks
that transpose.
Really?
Saw the comment.
We might do that part 2 or something. They had a close up on the video.
Mm-hmm.
The song was in G.
Yeah,
but there was a lot of A flat.
Yeah,
8 flats in the when they was focused on his keys.
And you're like, oh my God, yeah.
There's a prominent gospel keyboard.
So welcome, folks. As you can see right here, we got some other folks online. You guys probably know all these faces already. There's no stranger. We got Daquan Bowens from DaquanBowens.com. We got Shawn Wilson from ShawnWilsonPiano.com and Cory Taylor from Skilled Musicians. All giants in their own rights, piano gurus, teachers, players, professors, so to speak. This week, I wanted to talk to you guys, bring them on so we can discuss an important subject that's sort of been on the discussion board across many channels for the past few weeks, and that is the business of the transpose button. I know this is a fiery topic for a lot of people. Some people are completely against it, some are somewhere in the middle, and some are completely for the transpose button. So I decided to bring these guys on so we can talk about what their experience is and, their views on this thing, seeing that we're all basically advanced pianists who came up from beginner through the ropes, and we want to share with you our thoughts and feedback. All right, so welcome, guys. Welcome.
Hey,
Thank you.
Thanks, Warren.
Feel free to jump in whenever you want. I'm not going to really single out anyone just yet. So one of the first questions I have here is, have you ever used the transpose button coming up from beginner to advanced? All right, Daquan, here you go.
I never used it.
Never used it.
No, fortunately, I had mentors and people who showed me the ropes from the start. I didn't grow up playing in church. My first song was TLC, No Scrubs. My dad taught me that.
Wow.
And I learned on the DX7, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with that keyboard. It's very hard to maneuver.
Mm-hmm.
It just never really had a chance to. And when I did play in church, they had a digital piano. A digital piano that didn't have a transpose button on the front, so it was no way of doing it with ease. Matter of fact, I didn't even learn about the transpose button until I was like 20. I swear. But yeah,
that's a good thing, not knowing about it.
Also, I didn't grow up like I went through the ranks. I didn't start off at like 9 holding down a service by myself. Like I played Sunday school, just one song. I had to play one song in Sunday school, and they just taught me the song in the key that it was in. Mm-hmm. So I never really had a chance to use the button.
So Shawn.
Yes, sir.
Have you used the transpose button?
I've tried. I mean, when I like I said, I don't know. You know, I came out with a video recently about it, and so I've tried. I couldn't do it, but let me just tell you this: when I started playing for my mom's like a little Sunday school kind of a class with all kids. You know, they would sing like "If You're Happy," and the easy songs 1, 5, 4. So they would just start singing. So, I learned quickly, okay, these are just basic triads. So it was really I saw it just as a way to really I'm just going to play my triads in every key. So it kind of forced me to have to do that. There were situations I got in with like Daquan where, as I got older, I would get to keyboards and I couldn't play a certain song, but I could never figure out how to nowadays, they have it easy because the transpose button is nice and big right there. Oh, transpose. But where the keyboards I was using,
you got to go into
settings.
settings.
That stuff out. You're like, where's this transpose button? You have to read a manual, and even I don't have time to wait for that when they 3 seconds before. So I think part of it was just kind of a forcing. It's just it was a do or die situation.
Yeah,
you did it or you got embarrassed, and of course I was embarrassed a couple times. I mean, this is the way it works.
What about you, Cory?
Nah, it's kind of the same thing. I was 17 when I started playing in church, but before that, I took lessons and reading classical stuff and fairies and just that kind of stuff. So it was never a thought. And I remember when I started playing in church, it's a little small holiness church where everything was. All I had to learn was like run the bass line. And then just like 1 chord or 3 chords on my right hand side. I learned how to do that in every key. And my first experience with a transpose button was when I went to go. I had a Korg N5 EX on the Sheffield. I remember those. But I took my keyboard to this other church, and I was going to play my little same with my 1 chord holding it. And this choir got up and they started singing "I Told the Storm," and like the best musician in the town I'm from, he was there, and of course I didn't know that, and so he got on, and I kid you not, I didn't know what he was doing, but all of a sudden his hand looked like this on my keyboard. He was like, and then he started playing the song, and I was like, "What did you just do?" And he's like, "I transposed it to the." And so that was my first experience. And so it was like, you dive and then just kind of do all these different things to get to the transpose button. And I was like, I don't think I want to do that. So I never actually did.
Yeah, that's cool. My experience, when I just started out, the guy at my church, he was the one that started showing me a few chords. Now I was about 18 years old at this time. That's when I started keyboard. And he would, after church, he would show me like 3 chord progression and be like, go home and practice that for the week. And I have this, I think it was like no more than 3 or 4 octave keyboard. He also used batteries. So I just put that on my bed and I'd sit in front and I'll just practice those chords. And then eventually he'd be like, come play with me for service. So I would sit beside him on this little keyboard that he set up, and he never transposed. So whichever key is in, it'd be like, we're in the key of B, 5 sharp. I'd be like, all right, that's all the black keys. Or we're in the key of C sharp. So it would tell me how many black keys is in the key. And I'll turn my volume down, and I'll just sometimes one hand playing octaves on the strings. I would have my keyboard set to the string setting. And that's how I sort of fumbled my way through the different keys. He never mentioned anything about transpose. The keyboard I have did have the transpose button, and I would see it, and I did play around with it just to see how it works, but it never made sense to me because I started learning how to differentiate each key. Once I would transpose a key, it's like, because I'm a visual learner, so once I find the key, I sort of picture the shape of the scale and the shape of each chord. So when I transpose, like in the key of C, and I transpose that to E flat, my brain's starting to picture E flat, but here I am in C. So I was like, whoa, this is tripping. It's trippy. I can't do this. So I, just forced myself to gradually learn each key. The other thing too is when I try to learn songs from a recording, and I find that key of the song, I would just try to learn everything in that key for that particular song. So the transpose button never really made sense for me. And then after I went to college and started music school, that's a whole different ball game.
Okay, yeah.
You can't go to nobody and talk about transpose button there. It's like, what are you talking about? Because the first regiment they put you in is you got to learn all major scales in every way. So that's my experience with the transpose button. And now the questions I got for you. Do you guys recommend for beginners to use the transpose button until they can learn all 12 keys?
No.
No? It's a no right across the board?
Well, I'll tell you, for me, I don't recommend it, and here's why. It would be the same if I had I have 3 children, 8, 4, and 3, and so I'm we're out of the baby learning how to walk phase, but it's still fresh in my mind. Mm-hmm. And so part of the learning how to walk phase was them getting up, falling down, getting up, falling down until they got it. Mm-hmm. But I can't imagine giving my baby a cane and saying, learn to walk with this aid.
Until you can walk.
Because now you don't develop properly. So you have a cane that you're depending on to help you walk. So it seems like it might make sense. Hey, you're having trouble walking? Let me give you an aid to help you. But it's actually hurting you because you never developed the muscles to do it yourself. You're depending on an external thing.
Shawn, why would you say no?
I say no with a heavy exception. I say they shouldn't use it, but there's exceptions.
What are those?
And before I go into that, let me address the controversy that I didn't know that when I put that video out, I did not know, man. So let me just address something, okay, to your audience and to everybody else who's listening, because people miss the point, okay. At the beginning of the video, a young lady made an argument. Okay, the substance of the argument. Okay, and I read the comment on my video. The substance of the argument was that because I was in a situation where I transposed and I gave God glory, therefore the transpose button is good, right? That was her argument. So I was addressing the logical fallacy of the argument. So I brought in an argument that said, okay, so that means that if you don't do any homework and you get all A's, then you basically say it's okay not to do your homework. You see what I'm saying? I was addressing the argument. Now, I really wasn't addressing at that time whether the transpose button was right or wrong. I was just merely addressing what I felt were irresponsible comments, right? Because we're not going to tell somebody who says, well, I smoke 20 cigarettes a day. Look at me. I'm 80 and still alive. That's irrelevant. You see what I'm saying? The fact that you did it doesn't make it the right thing to do just because it worked out in this situation. So I just wanted to throw that out there, that we got to be careful with the what we're telling other people, even if we are using it for the time being. But to your question though, there's an issue where, and it's unfortunate, but it's an issue where a lot of us or people that have been watching may have been put in situations to where they just can't play in a certain key, right? And the argument that a lot of people were making was, well, if I'm in a situation, so that's why I said with exception, because like if you learn "Faithful is Our God" and "Faithful is Our God" in B flat, and then at the last second they tell you, no, we need to lower this a half step, but you can't play, then in A. I would make an argument that in that situation, you kind of don't have a choice in that situation. Now, I'm not saying, again, I'm not saying that they should be dependent on it. You see what I'm saying? I think it should be a moving thing, because as musicians, we grow. So we start at one level and we're expected to keep growing. So if the person who 20 years later is still using a transpose button, now we have a problem. So I think it's a scale of growth that I'm more or less looking at, in terms of how I'm looking at it, instead of just a flat out no.
Yeah, that's something I can agree with. You're up there, last minute, they change a key on you. You have 2 options. You can either completely bomb the song, or with a click of a button, and you can recover the song. If you're in that position, I would say, of course, use that transpose. But on the flip side of that, that's the argument I get a lot too, is what if I'm in church and they change? So it's like, how often do you find yourself in those positions where they raise a song where you don't know the key? I mean, I don't know how everybody churches run. In my church, all the musicians get the song by Thursday, Wednesday. So you know the list of songs. We know what key. Occasionally, the pastor might raise a song that was not in the bulletin, and we find the key and we play it. But that's occasionally. Most weeks, they stick to the order of worship. They stick to the songs that were sent out the week before. Is that how y'all churches run it too?
Sure.
Pretty much.
Excuse me. I think people transpose. I think is a complex issue. Like it's down to administration from your team.
Yeah,
they should respect you enough to don't change up. Like if the song is, we doing song A and it's in the key of A, we get on Sunday, sing the song we worked on. And. So I think it's bigger problems, and I think sometimes musicians have the that pressure because when something is bad, they don't really look at the singers, or at least from my experience, they look at the musicians. So the musicians don't want to be embarrassed, but at the same time, to really answer the question, I don't think you should use the transpose, and if you even are thinking about that, you are not ready. You're not ready to perform, or right. Play. A lot of that, like, people are not honest with themselves. Like, yeah. I just really think it just comes down, like, you have to be honest with yourself. Am I ready to take on this responsibility of performing in a public setting? That's pretty much it. Like, if you're not, you have to learn the fundamentals. And if you don't have those, if you're not ready.
In a lot of these churches, in a lot of these churches, some of these guys and girls, they are the only person equipped to even attempt to play a song on the keyboard. So they're kind of just thrown up there like, well, you're the next best thing we got. You're a beginner, but you're still the best thing we have. And so there they are, went from being a beginner to being the main keyboardist for the services now. And so they got to catch up. In that case, what would you recommend to someone like that they've been thrown up there? They can only probably play in one key, but here they are now, have to carry the service week after week after week in all these various keys. What would you recommend for someone find themselves in that position?
Learn your primary chords. So just learn 3 chords in every key.
1, 4, 5. Exactly.
And you can play every song. Now some of the more complex songs, it won't sound as good, but you can get through. I mean, that's how I got through for the first year or two that I started. And I was thrown in immediately. I only knew how to play one song. I love you, Lord, today. And I went to Holiness Church. They didn't sing that song. And so I had to learn how to play by ear, and I had to learn how to, just figure it all out. And all I knew was 3 chords in every key, because we had a guitar player, and that's all he played. So I said, okay, it was just me and a guitar player. So I just played the 3 chords he played.
And an average person can probably learn the 1, 4, 5 in every key. Probably like a month or 2. Any thoughts on that, Shawn?
No, I agree totally. I think learning 1, 4, 5, and I was actually going to add to that, maybe learning a basic song, so you can kind of, see how chords are tied together. It'll kind of teach you kind of inversions too in a roundabout way. Like if you're playing like what he said, I Love You, Lord, Today, or something really simple. I don't think people should start off with learning a difficult song in every key, because I think the process of that would take a lot longer than you're thinking. And so what I think the problem a lot of musicians have is they want to do every single fancy chord they hear, and they're trying to do it in every key. But, and that's the problem that I try to address on my channel all the time, is that there's a process of growth. You start basic. You can't be scared of the basics, right? Because that's where you learn your foundation. And so the reason why a lot of people feel like they have holes is because they try to rush. You see what I mean? So they'll learn all their favorite licks, right? But can they just play a 1, 4, 5 and their inversions? in every key, right? Some of them may not be able to do that. So I think, just doing an easy song, doing inversions in every key, I think would be good. And like I said, I think a month's time, definitely no longer than 3 months, 1 to 3 months. That's going to be time well worth it. You look back at the time and then you'll notice, hey, I know my keys. But I'm going to tell you at the end, there's a caveat to that still. But all your keys. I'll say it that way.
So just to reiterate, what you guys are saying is before dudes start trying to learn all these 7s and 9s and drop 2s and all of that, just focus on learning at least 1, 4, 5 in all keys.
Yeah,
exactly.
And even in that, though, I think also you can't be afraid to take an L, take a loss. You know what I'm saying? All great players lost. Jordan lost. LeBron. The list goes on.
You're going to mess up. You're going to screw up.
Yeah.
I have many of those situations.
There have been times where the church only had an organ, and at the time I couldn't play organ. And I just was like, okay, I'm scared, but this is all that's here. Lord, let's go. And I would just play. I didn't know chords at the time, so I played a whole song with just the melody. When I got done, nobody clapped. It was bad. I was like 11. It was traumatizing, but I was like, all right. I had to be objective about it, even at that age. Like, I was upset, but I was like, okay, yeah, it was kind of trash. let me go home and practice.
One of my worst experience dealing with all of this was I was playing, I think, for evening service. There wasn't a lot of people there. Mm-hmm. And, someone started to sing a song that I know. And it was in a key that I could play in. It was in the key of C. So I was like, yeah. And I'm playing along, doing my thing, feeling confident. And then the singer decides halfway through, they're just going to change the key. I don't think they did it deliberately. They just went sharp. Went from C to C sharp, man. And I stopped playing because I realized, wait, we're not in the same key anymore. But then I couldn't find keys that well. So I didn't even realize that all they went was a half step. So I started doing the beep, boop, 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 beep, doop, boop, doop, doop, for like 3 minutes. By the time I figured out it was in the key of C sharp, the song was almost done. Man, if I could bury my face in the wall, I would. But here I am today. So a lot of these folks are afraid of embarrassing situations, but I'm like, you're going to have one. It's going to happen sooner or later.
No, go ahead, Daquan.
So, the truth is, I don't think those embarrassing moments stop. I think they you won't have them as frequent. My dad plays, and my dad is 80 years old, believe it or not.
Wow.
we had this family event. This was like 2 years ago. We was playing James Brown tune. It's 2 chords. This Is a Man's World. So I started doing all these crazy reharms. He looked at me, was like, bruh, we don't need all that. It's 2 chords. He just had some cuss words in there, He was like 2 chords. And he was like, matter. I was like, I looked at him like, okay. He was like, oh, okay. In the mic, he was like, you know what? Watch out. He played the chord. He could barely see. Like, he played the chords. And I walked away. He's like, no, you're going to come back and you're going to watch.
In front of everybody.
In front of everybody. This is 2 years ago.
Wow. He just called you out.
Damn, man.
Yeah. I'm still kind of mad about that, but it was a lesson though. So
it was,
I just want to throw that out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have any of those experience, Shawn?
No. Well, man. Let me tell you. Let me say this, man. Because I knew I wanted to take the counter, because I knew that by and large we'd be against it, but I would make the argument. that nobody can play in all 12 keys to perfection. And here's what I mean. Song complexity makes a huge difference.
Yep.
Let's say that all of us take 6 months to learn an Art Tatum song.
Mm-hmm.
You can't tell me that at the last minute somebody come and say, now play that song in B, that all of us are going to do it.
Listen.
Now let me just say this, okay? Because the gospel songs nowadays, okay, if we're being real,
Yeah.
these gospel songs have some of these crazy changes, crazy intros, and so I think there's some nuance to this discussion. You understand what I'm saying? That we have to accept. I mean, because there's no Mary Had a Little Lamb, and playing How Great is Our God is different than Total Praise. Those songs are completely different, and the skill level they require to play those two songs are different. It's going to be depending on the musician. So, I'd rather somebody say, I would use it in limitation according to my level. You understand what I'm saying? But that may mean they may not have to play the song in some cases, and in some cases it can get them through. But I really feel like there's some nuance, depending on very difficult songs. I think, there should be something there, but I don't know what you guys feel about that. But,
does anyone know when the transpose button was invented? Probably 80s?
I don't know.
Maybe.
I'm thinking probably 80s.
It might be the 90s because I had I grew up on the DX7 and that was like 87 and it didn't have it on the keyboard.
It was in the 70s.
It was
It was 70s?
a lot of, I don't know. I think
Either
like
way,
I had an old keyboard
90s.
that somebody gave me from like the early 80s, and it could transpose.
Like there was a button on top.
It was like a slider.
Okay.
Oh, maybe it is.
It'd be like a +1, +2 kind of thing.
Oh, so probably it started in the 70s. Yeah. So how y'all think musicians before then, how did they fare out? Because probably by then there was a literal piano in every church. Mm-hmm. That's how you learn how to play.
Well,
how did those guys do it?
The thing is, the organist, I'm against transposing, just to make sure I put it out there. I'm just taking the other side. But, if the organist isn't allowed to transpose, right, then, and he has to figure it out. And actually he has a little bit more of a complex situation too. He's got the pedals and stuff to worry about as well. So he's got to think about that too. Your bass guy has to literally, do that. So, I think in that kind of a situation, it's a do or die situation. Y'all fumble through it together. So, here's the thing though. Let me just give a real life situation. I have a praise and worship leader who we work very well together. So she will say, hey, I want to lower this. She doesn't come to this is to Daquan's point. Before in terms of just, working with your group, she'll say, Shawn, I need to lower this. And I, looking at the complexity of the song, because there are some songs, like I said, the changes in them are just too much to lower it on the spot. And so I'll tell her, it could be somebody's horse. I'm going to say, you know what? I don't think this is fair to the musician, to the organist. We have rehearsed changes. This may be a little bit too much. And so in those situations, I think it's easier to throw it back than to feel like every single song we have to accommodate every single thing that somebody requests.
Yeah, it's just preparation.
So so that's what I'm talking about, because we're not talking about musicians not preparing. We're talking about musicians who are prepared, who did learn what they're supposed to learn. And then they're being put in situations where the only way to solve that situation is through transposing. You see what I'm saying? So those are the people who are trying to argue that it's right. I'm saying that's not actually the case. It's not that it's right. You see what I mean? They're trying to argue that it should be used.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. So I feel like it's a nuanced situation.
In that situation, Shawn, I believe transposing is a tool instead of a crutch. Because I get it though. you know, like a song like maybe like Giant Steps. You know, that's hard. It's hard to mentally process that because there's a lot of key changing and stuff like that. So, I don't know. Like, I don't want to say it's okay, but then I don't want to say it's not okay in that context.
Yeah.